Good evening.
Good evening.
Okay, I know y'all never see me in hats, girl. The hair, child. Woo. Never wore a hat. So I'm kind of got the roster thing going on. Don't worry about it.
I just left the gym, so I look a hot mess.
No, you good. You got the good bandana on. This is, yeah. All right. Well, we're going to give it a minute or two for everyone to get online here. Then we'll do some intros. Let me go get a drink. Hold on. All right, I'll give one more minute here. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes.
Okay.
Hey, it's Sophia. I just called in.
All right, Fia.
Hey. So silly.
I see. Okay, I see a 604, 607. Who else dialing in?
Keisha.
Keisha. Okay, K-Mo.
No joker.
Need to make sure who my audience is.
Oh, it's me, 607.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna
Sean
give it.
said,
Okay, let me look, see if anybody texted me. Okay. I'll go ahead and get started here because it's 8:02. Don't like wasting folks' time here. Good evening, everyone. Sora Tatiana Neely, First Anti. Super excited. Thank you for dialing into our March Membership Matters session. Purpose of this session this evening is to talk about data politics, specifically conferences, for example. You got your state, regional, as well as your national. Why are those important? What happens at those conferences? If you were to serve as a delegate, for example, or not even a delegate, when you're in the room and we're taking care of business, you'll see about voting, right? And what does that mean? If there are elections taking place, someone may pass you a flyer. You're like, what's this? And, you know, what does she do, right? So those kinds of things are important to know. So that's why we wanted to have this session to prepare you ahead of time. Especially for those that are also coming back to Zeta 2. I hadn't been to a conference, my gosh, since undergrad when I had rejoined, and I was like, whoa. And I volunteered to be a delegate, which was like real whoa, okay? So I have our very own Madam State Director. Give you a little bit of background on her. She is from the Mill, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. She has a beautiful son, a beautiful daughter. She's a mom, a pampered chef, a politician, a wife, you everything, child. So I will go ahead and kick this meeting off and let Madam State take it away.
Good evening, Soros. Thank you so much for joining. Are you able to hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. Awesome. I saw Sir Faith join. I hope you're feeling better and on the road to recovery.
Thank you.
I've certainly been with you. So it's great to see everybody. Thank you so much for joining the call. I promise to keep my tips and ideas brief, but make sure I leave opportunities for a discussion, and then I'm happy to share any additional information that you might have. So we'll get started. So when I talked to Madam First about this webinar and asked kind of what she wanted to get out of it, there were a whole list of things to talk about. And so I thought, given the regional conference coming up, and of course we have Zoll and then state conference in the fall, it would be good to kind of focus more on why the attendance and participation in those conferences are important, and also kind of what you can expect. So if you are, do we have anybody who has never been to a Zeta conference? No judgment, you just have not had the opportunity to attend. Anybody? Okay, good. So then I'm gonna go with that just about everybody has been to something, whether it was a state retreat, conference, regional conference, boule, something like that. So of course there's levels to this, right? So when you have your chapter meetings, and your chapter is one thing, that's kind of your own little corner of the world. But it's important that, for perspective on the sisterhood, that you take the opportunity to really get to know the sisterhood at different levels and get to see how business operates on different levels. For me, I've been a Zeta for 21 years, and I remember going to my early conferences when I was in college, and it was expected that we were at conferences. It was expected that we were at state. It was expected that we were at regionals. If we could swing it, definitely boule, but that was kind of how we were trained to be present. And so for us, it became routine. And so we always would love to go. We would pile up in the car and head out to wherever the conference was. We would pile up in our rooms together, and we would enjoy going to the business sessions. Really, because at that age, we didn't really, it was fun to see Zeta on a different level. It was even more fun to see sorors, sorry, it's my dog, see sorors come and how they interact with each other and hear how the motions sound, and, all the, just the fun. It was fun to watch, and we were happy to be there. What I have learned over the years is that conferences are where you make a lot of learnings about the sisterhood, but also it's where you make a lot of connections within the sisterhood. And that's important because it gives you perspective. So if you are a local soror, you go to your chapter meetings, that bravo, you are doing a great job. But sometimes you may have a smaller perspective because you only see what's inside of your neighborhood, right? So you may not have perspective on what conversations look like at different levels, or what leaders think are important, because at conferences you'll hear from your leadership at those different levels, and they will provide you with updates. Sometimes you'll kind of hear it first at a conference of different initiatives and things like that. And so when you go to the different levels, you get to kind of see it's a broader spectrum. You also get to see how people disagree and how that is managed. You see how people support each other. There's so much that you can learn when you attend conferences at a different level that all help you operate on the local level. If you think about a lot of times when we are at conferences, there's so many things going on, right? You've got business sessions, you've got training workshops, you've got elections, all of those things are part of the conference. You've got your meal function speakers, usually some type of dress up event, all kinds of things are going on. And those things are all for a purpose. And so when you go to your first conference, depending on how large it is, it can be overwhelming, quite frankly, because there's so many people. Everybody's doing something. Everybody's moving fast. You're trying to figure out what you want to do, where you've gone. And so I always recommend that when people attend conferences, that you make a plan. And you figure out if you're going to workshops, take a look at that schedule for the conferences. Make a plan of where you'd like to go. If you have multiple chapter sorors going, make a plan so that every conference, every workshop gets attended. So that way you come back to the chapter with all of the information versus just a small corner. So it makes a big difference when you make a plan for the conference. Now, along with that, normally you will receive an elections or a nominations report rather prior to going, so you'll know the sorors who are running for office. every year we attend a conference outside of state retreats, there is going to be an election because officers are rolling on and rolling off of the boards at those levels. And so you'll see in the registration packet that they will be accepting nominations. And so people can send in their information to be considered for a role. And then people also run from the floor. So those sorors have decided to take their leadership to the next level for whatever, reason that they're choosing. Sometimes it's something they've always wanted to do. Sometimes they're challenging themselves for any number of reasons. But when you have that opportunity to vote for sorors at the conference, it's important that you, one, dig in and get to know who you're voting for as much as possible. When you see people who are running for office, a lot of time and preparation has typically gone into that. People do run from the floor, but a lot of times you'll even notice that sorors that run from the floor, and that simply means that they are they've come to the conference and they're not currently on the slate, but they're going to be added to the slate or petitioned to be added to the slate at the conference. So if, even if they've run from the floor, they probably have thought about it a little bit and have done some level of preparation. And so you have to consider that it is something, it is serious. And it's not just a simple check of the box or choosing whoever you want. It really is about thinking based on what you can learn about that soror, on the information that she has provided, on your interactions perhaps that you've had with her during the conference or with some of her team members, that you make an informed choice. Now, your chapter may have also determined in advance who they would like to vote for. So, for example, when we went over the slate for Boulé last year, we went through every single office as a chapter and we made our selections. And then for Grand, we actually, because there were so many candidates, we kind of had our first, second, third. So to help the delegates be able to know what the voice of the chapter is. And so if you are a delegate, you are there to represent the interests of the chapter. And so sometimes we'll make those determinations, and sometimes we don't have enough information, and we'll say, we're going to trust the delegates to make the best choice for the chapter if there's just not a lot for us to go on. But many times, especially for Boulé, many times for a regional, there will be some hotly contested roles, and it'll be important for the chapter or the delegates to kind of get the consensus of what the body would like, and then be able to vote, effectively from there. So it's very important that, while you're at conferences, that you're working to kind of get to know those candidates and to look at their platform and to listen, behind the words. And, I can tell you that, let's see, I've been to several Boulés, and there have been some times where I've run into candidates and they're, kind of all, sunshine and roses perhaps on the stage, but then when you meet them on the elevator, it's a kind of a different soror. So I think it's important that you, understand that they're people. They can be very stressed because of the environment, and of course they want to win. They've probably invested their finances, their time, they may have gotten an extra special curl in their hair for that weekend. And so you really have to think about their effort. So for those levels, you are making a choice. And so we vote for those people. They represent us on the state and the regional and the national level, just like when you make your decisions at home. When we vote in our chapter, again, this is our little microcosm, our little neighborhood that we're voting for, and we're voting for the best interest of the chapter. And I think that that's an important perspective. When we vote at the state level, we're voting in the best interest of the state, and the same for the region, and the same nationally. And so it's different. It's not just about what you want. At the chapter level, you can say, yeah, that's cool. She's cool. I like her. I'm going to vote for her. But what you may like may not be enough to sustain the chapter. And so it's important to always keep the level in mind as you are voting and making an informed decision about what this could look like as that person is serving, as that soror is leading us. And so, that is very important. It's important, I also think, when you are kind of getting to know sorors, because I talked about the networking piece as well. you're going to meet and you're going to see the same swords year after year. There's going to be new ones sprinkled in, but you're going to have your routine folks that you're going to run into at conferences, and you'll start to look forward to that, because that kind of becomes another level of sisterhood for you. And it's a great feeling, because a lot of times those are the connections that you'll make, that when you come home and you see a chapter's program or something on Facebook or a flyer, you're like, oh, I know a soror from that chapter, and you want more information. Now you've got a connection to be able to get that information, to be able to bring home and share with your own chapter. You may be wanting to run for an office yourself. Well, guess what? People need to know who you are. So if you've been a regular face at a conference, if you're one of those routine faces that people see, when you get ready to run for a leadership role, or you'd like to be considered for something, now they can put a face with a name. They can say, oh, I know Soror Sanders. Yes, I absolutely do. She's very nice. I've met her here. I see her here. And so now you've got some political capital, if you will, because you show up. And that's very important in the sisterhood. It's important that you make an effort to branch out. So at conferences, sometimes there's so many people. We want to make sure we have a seat, so we save chairs for people at our table so our chapter can sit together, right? And that's fun and that's exciting, and I love that because we're all over the place. And so you kind of want those moments where it just gets to be you and the chapter, and you kind of connect at a different level at a conference, because it's just y'all, it's just a few of us. And so you kind of get to know those sorors' behaviors a little differently, and it helps other people be able to get to know your chapter and your chapter's personality. So in our early days, when we were very small, we would have like 1 or 2 people at a conference, sometimes 2 to 3. It was easy to sit together, and then we grew and it was like, okay, we need 2 tables. So we need to have people present and early, to block off that time for us. And I think now it's probably worse, but I think it's really important to spend that time, because that political capital works at home as well. When you build those relationships, you're putting those deposits in the bank with your chapter sorors, and that comes in handy later on, because we're a sisterhood. So, oftentimes I always refute the saying that this is a business. It's a business. It's a business. Well, actually, it's a sisterhood that handles business, and it's supported by our principles. So if we don't get the sisterhood piece right, then the business won't be right, because we won't be fulfilling our principles. And so that sisterhood piece on the conference level matters too, because you're going to enjoy your chapter sorors there. You're going to get to know sorors from other states, from other cities, from other states, from other countries. And so it really is an opportunity for you to make connections. The best thing, I think, for me, is what I learn about what other chapters do. I love going to sessions where I'm going to get to hear how other chapters are handling some of the same challenges and things that my chapter might be experiencing. I like to hear what the bigger chapters are doing, so I can be thinking forward and future about some things that we may need to take into consideration. I want to be able to pour into chapters that may be newer than us, that may need some assistance, or some chapters that just may be struggling to share some different strategies of things that may have worked for us. But it's information sharing. It is better. We're better together. And so all of that networking and those connections really do matter. Just, kind of to be funny a little bit, but serious too. One of the things for me as state director that I have learned is, for everything I want to complain about PMZ, because we can always, there's always something that you don't like. But when I look at other chapters, I'm like, you know what? They got drama too. Like, that's just what it is. And it's healthy in the sense that we're all striving for Zeta, right? We're here to serve our sisterhood. We have so much passion around it. There's just all of this energy. And sometimes that energy, is a little bit of a rub for us. But when I look around and I see other chapters, I'm like, oh man, okay, so it's not just us. It's not just us. And that makes me feel like, okay, all right, I'm good. So how am I going to handle this? How are we going to work together? How are we going to work through this? When I look at chapters that are about our age, and I see them growing at the rate that, we are growing, and how they're managing it, what their programming looks like. Those are all things that help me to figure out how we can be our best version of ourselves. And now in my role at the state level, I'm like, okay, how do I take those jewels and those nuggets and help the chapters who may need a little bit of encouragement or who may have gotten a little bit stagnant? What can I tell them? How can I take from that one chapter that's really strong and help them to bridge to a chapter that may need some support? Or maybe once we're strong, but maybe it's having a little bit of a kind of a static year or something like that. So it really makes a difference. And I think a lot of that comes from being in the company of sorors outside of your chapter. I think that a lot of opportunities on the state and the regional and national levels, certainly we saw last summer with the new administration coming in, there were so many roles open for sorors who were interested in doing just about anything. It's like, oh, I think I'm a marketing person. Great, we got a marketing team. Sign up, or I'm legal. I'm a lawyer. Great, legal counsel, perfect. I do, underwater basket weaving. We don't have nothing for that, but you never know. So, but there's all these different things where if you have an interest, there is something for you to do in the sisterhood. Your gifts will make room for you. But if people don't know you, then it can be a little bit harder for you. So again, you go to those conferences, you become those routine faces. You make the connections from, if you joined in undergrad, you might make the connection with your old undergrad sorors. If you joined in grad and you've been coming consistently, maybe you went to MIP training with the group and you'll see those sorors there. Or maybe you got undergrad certification, you'll see those sorors. Or you're in the stroll competition for the chapter, and so you meet the other stroll teams, and those become your kind of relationships. And so it really does help. I think overall helps you to build a bigger picture for Zeta. And that bigger picture for Zeta sometimes helps you stay afloat at home. Because if you just focus on your microcosm, your chapter, sometimes we can be so hard on ourselves that we forget there's so much more to Zeta than just what we see here in our little PMZ heart. That's all we can think about sometimes, but it's so much bigger than that. So these different levels really help. Now, I'll share that, when you go to conference, people are running for things. Sometimes it looks like it's already kind of figured out. And you're like, how does this happen? That's because those connections have been made. Those relationships have been built. It's not to discourage anybody from stepping onto the plate, because you got to start from somewhere. And sometimes people run and they don't win, but they don't quit. They come back. They get better. They figure out a different angle. It may not be their time. And so they come back and they run again, or they run for a different role or what have you. But they, have that staying power. In my first election for the state, I ran for assistant grammatius, and I ran against two other sorors, and I ran from the floor. Because at that time when we didn't know that role was going to be up for election. So I ran against those sorors, and it was tough. I think we had to vote maybe 3 times. Is that right, Todd? Yeah.
It might have been 4.
Might have been 4.
It was
rough.
ridiculous.
Yeah. But you know what? The 2 sorors that ran against me, I am friends with them right now, because we were running. We were together like, oh, Lord, this is stressful. I ain't planning on all of this, And they were so friendly it was like it didn't matter at the end of the day who won. And then after me, one of the people that ran against me, she ran almost 2 years ago, and so she's in the office now. And the other soror is like super soror. She's all over the place. So, and another one who ran last state conference, she ran on the regional level and won. So it's okay. It's okay to get out there. You won't know unless you try and give it your best shot. For appointed roles, it's a little different. I can't really tell you the rhyme or reason to that, other than it's good to be known. It's good to have relationships with people. It's good to let your good be well spoken of in other areas, in rooms that you are not in, so that people can give you a shot when it's time and you have an interest in doing something. For me, state director came a little untraditionally. I don't know how many people were in the chapter at the beginning of the year. I know we had some new folks on the phone, but it was crazy. So I didn't come in the traditional way. And I just recently have talked to some sorors that, advocated for me. when they needed a North Carolina state director. And they were like, oh yeah, I told the grant, I know you and I've been knowing you, you know. And it just so happened that my line sister, because I had a line in 97, she is the Wisconsin state director. So she was appointed. Another soror that was from Minnesota, and at the time Wisconsin and Minnesota was one state back in the day. She became the Tennessee state director. And then my undergrad advisor became the Indiana state director. And my dear friend is the Zoll chair. And so I have relationships with those people. Those are people that I have known for a long time. Even Dr. Hendricks for Zoll, I've known her. We moved to Charlotte the same year. So I met her when I was a regional youth coordinator. Again, raised my hand and said I wanted to do that and got appointed to that role. That's how we met. And we moved to Charlotte the same year. And that's been my girl ever since. I mean, down like 4 flats. She has my back. And so when it came time for me to want to do something, she has a different kind of political capital. Her mom's a past regional director. Her mom's a past chair of the regional directors. You know, she's from South Carolina. It's close proximity for me. That helped in a lot of ways too. So she could advocate for me even in circles that I was not in, because she knows my work and she knows my work ethic. And she knows what I stand for. And so those things all play a role in developing that political capital. And let me just say this, because sometimes we talk a little bit about making connections and being strategic. And I just want to caution, I want you guys to understand, for me personally, I'm all about the bank. And here's what I mean by that. As a person, as a human, I feel like I have a responsibility to be good to people. And every time I'm good to somebody, every time I genuinely care about somebody, I express a genuine interest in how you're doing. I'm a good friend. I am a good, fair leader. Fair doesn't mean you get your way all the time. It means that you can respect the decision that I made in the interest of the organization that we serve. But those are all deposits that are made into our bank. And the more deposits that you make, when that time comes where you need to make a withdrawal, when you need something, when you need help, when you need support, when you need people to go in with you, maybe a little blindly because you see something that they don't see, they're willing to go that distance with you because you built up those credits in the bank. It can be very hard sometimes when you don't understand, when you don't know the heart of a person. Everything offends you. Everything sounds crazy. Because they don't have any credits in the bank with you. And so for me, it's very relational. And if we don't establish those relationships, in particular for leadership, is very important. It's very hard to lead. It's very hard to serve on different levels because people don't have that knowledge of you or care for you to be able to support your wildest dreams. You know, for me being state director, I have a lot of, what do you call them? Oh gosh, I think it's like big, hairy, audacious goals. I don't know. But I have some crazy things I want to do. I had crazy things I wanted to do as chapter basilisk. But I believe at the time when I served as PMZ's basilisk that the chapter trusted me and my vision. And so we were willing to fight together to get it done. Like, okay, we're going to do this. I believe in us. We can absolutely do this. And I think the sorors, at that point for me, we have been in together, working to grow the chapter together. So if I had a vision, we were going to work towards it. Or they were going to check me and be like, you're going too far, bring it back. But we had those relationships where we could accomplish things together. So, that's really how I feel. When Todd first told me about Zeta Politics, thank you. I was like, what you mean? Because I really don't do politics, but what I will say is that everybody does it. It's how you do it. And so for me, it's more relational than anything else. And that's because that's who I am and the heart of me. That's how I serve. That's how I serve at work and everywhere else. But it is about what you're put into it, how you treat people, how you serve is how people are going to respect you in the end. So I think that was everything. Yep. If you got aspirations, I'll just throw this in. You need to go to conferences. Every level has requirements of what you need to be able to serve. If you don't go to conferences, that's already a shortcoming for you. So go and get your credentials so that you can be whatever you want to be. That's how we were raised in Zeta. You go get your credentials so that nobody can stop you from being anything that you want to be. And if you need more information on that, you can read the qualifications of the offices on the different levels, and it'll tell you what's required. But I always say, go to the conferences, get your paperwork, get your certifications, and that way you stay ready so you don't have to get ready. Okay, Tot, I'm ready.
All right, Sora. So we have about 5 to 7 minutes for Q&A. I have the group chat because we got about 18 people on the phone, but raise of
18,
hands.
hey, y'all.
Does anyone have any questions about conferences? You can get certified at conferences, networking at conferences, aspirations to run for a position at conferences. I have my takeaways, but I like to do that after everyone asks their questions, if there are any inquiries. How many people on the phone are attending regional conference this week? Okay, I saw one hand. I know Keisha's going. I'm going. Yeah, I know it might be, you know, with our Boulé and Centennial, I know some of the conferences are kind of taking a hit.
Well, not this conference. There's like 750 people going to regional.
Is it?
Yeah, it's gonna be crazy. I kind of thought it was gonna be smaller too.
Yes.
Centennial stuff opening up.
Child.
So it's like, listen.
Oh.
Okay. So
okay.
a lot of people there. Yeah.
Yeah, that's Greensboro. That's because it's in Greensboro.
Yeah.
Greensboro about that life.
With Zoll too opening up on Friday, I think people were waiting for that too. So I think that I get people wanting to kind of figure out where you're going to put your money.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right. Well, I'll do one more pause. Does anyone have any questions for Madam State? All right. So let me just do my wrap up before I do my thank you. So my takeaways are conference, you go in, you need to get a perspective from the sisterhood side of things. Make a plan before you go to conference. They put out an agenda. Leverage all your resources. So have people go to multiple workshops, expand. The same thing when you go into luncheons. I know I won't sit with the whole chapter, but sometimes I might have 1 or 2 sorors with me, and we'll go sit with another chapter that might have 1 or 2 people, and I've connected with multiple sorors in multiple areas that I still keep in contact with, and I add them on Facebook, and then it's on and popping from there. Get to know who you're voting for. And that's period. Even if you're not a delegate, you should know these people that are going to be in leadership positions and leading the sisterhood. Next up, networking. Get your core group of sorors. Expand outside the box. Psi Mu Zeta is great. I call it the premier chapter of Charlotte. It's nothing like it. However, we could definitely learn from one another, other chapters, small, medium, or large, of, hey, girl, the tickets ain't selling. What we doing?
What we do.
Right.
Yeah.
How you do it? Because your luncheon had 400 people, right? So those kind of discussions that you could have. Sisterhood that handles the business. And then also get your Zeta Love deposit. I like that. I need more deposits, less withdrawals. Okay. Wink, wink. Okay. So with that said, if there are no more other questions, Madam State, I appreciate you taking the time. I know that you are preparing for conference. So I appreciate everyone that dialed in. I have Sora Brown raising orange hand.
Okay.
Hey, good evening, everyone.
Hi.
So my question is, it could just be really short, but do you have any advice to the chapter as we are coming upon our local elections for our chapter this year, that you could just give words of advice for anyone on the line in case they think they may want to run or not?
Yeah. if you think that you first of all read the bylaws, so you make sure that you qualify, that you have your qualifications. But if we need leaders to serve, we don't want leaders to burn out. You know, we want to make sure that we have fresh perspective. We want to make sure that we have people that are willing, you know, to do what it takes to make sure that the chapter is successful. And if you feel that in your heart and you want to serve the chapter, I say go for it. Again, you may win, you may not win, but you won't know if you don't try. And you also won't build that kind of muscle that it takes to put yourself out there. I think it's important. Healthy competition is good. It pushes us to be better. It pushes us to think a little harder. And I think that we should expect that from our leaders, that we, you know, that they have a plan and a vision that we can question, that we can, you know, get behind, that we can understand. And so I think when you're running for a local office in the chapter, think about it. Really, it's not just, oh, I think I want to be Gramadius. So I'm just thinking about Sarah. I want to be a Gramadius, so I just want to be on the board. Well, do you really want to be on the board? Because Gramadius is a lot of work. So if you don't like taking notes, or if you don't listen well, it's probably not the role for you. So you really want to think about what your interests are and what you're willing to do for the chapter before you just jump in. But by all means, if you want to serve, get out there, because we definitely need leaders. It's not easy serving on the executive board. You're kind of out a little bit on an island. You have to make tough decisions. Again, people may not always understand the full breadth of the decision making, but it's necessary. But if you're in it, I mean, go for it. You won't know until you give it a shot. And then on the voting side of things, when you're looking at those people, again, get to know the people that are running and what they stand for and what they're willing to put in for the chapter and their vision, and really think through that so that you make an informed choice.
All right. We got minute and 30 seconds. Anyone else have any questions for Madam State? All right. Well, I will thank you all again. I appreciate you all dialing in, supporting this March Membership Matters.
Thank you.
And you all have a good evening.
You
Bye,
too.
Sean.
Bye.
Good night. Thank you, Shalisa.